All right, we finished SRS, simple random samples, in the last lesson, last Thursday and Friday, and we're moving on to stratified and cluster. So we overall learn three different sampling methods, and this is it. There are more that exist that statisticians use, but for AP, we just go over those three. You just need to be a pro at those three. Simple random sample, remember no sorting is done whatsoever. But once we move to stratified or cluster, we're using strata. We're using non-overlapping groups. So like classrooms at Lubbock High, those are strata, because on any given class period, no student is in more than one classroom. Schools could be strata, because no student goes to more than one school, or I don't think they do. The confusing thing is that we talk about cluster sampling, and clusters are the same thing as strata. So people mix all this up, and I would guess that stratified is something you're familiar with. You take a random sample from each group, but cluster sampling, we're actually sampling the group numbers themselves. Whichever groups we get, all individuals in those groups are in the sample. So that one will make more sense when we actually write it out and you can read it. But I'll just be honest, cluster sampling is weird. But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. It really just depends on the situation. And there are situations where cluster sampling makes sense. So this top one, stratified, we take an SRS from each group, or strata, or cluster, whatever you want to call it. Cluster sampling, we take an SRS of the groups themselves. So these two little phrases may sound the same, but they're different. I'm taking an SRS from each group. So maybe, I don't know, I have 10 groups, and so I take a sample of 5 students from each group. That's stratified. Cluster sampling, I number the groups. I take a certain number of groups. So let's say I have 10 groups, and I number them all 1 to 10, and I get, say, 2 random numbers. Then 2 of the groups are chosen, and I take all students in those 2 groups. We'll practice it, I promise. It'll make sense after a few of these practice problems. So here's one right here that we'll practice it with. So read through that, pause it maybe, and read through it. The numbering is a little bit hard to read. They had to condense it to just this one little picture. Notice there's a ... right here. So those 4 rows are not all of the rows. We have a row, depends on how you look at it. You might be calling this a row, or you might call this a row. I like to call that a row. So then every row has 20 seats. So then, how many rows do we have? So maybe divide 20 into 80, and we have 40 rows. So that's one thing to look at. Look at it by row. Maybe look at it by column. And you could go off, see the circled row up there? You could call those column numbers and look at these seats. That could be a whole other way you look at it. So I would say we have 20 columns, which naturally means we have 40 seats per column. All right. So it's kind of inverted, depends on what you're interested in. I'm just talking about the layout here. We have a whole other guide right here in this box. That's by grade level. We have 200 seats per grade level. Put the ninth graders in back. Those are the freshmen. We don't really care about them. Seniors and juniors are most important, so we put them in front. Seniors very front, juniors next, then sophomores. So, by section, we need a sample of 80, and on the next slide, we're going to do different sampling methods. So let me scroll to that. We want to do a basic SRS, so I would recommend you hit pause on the video and write your own. See if you can do it. So I am going to write my own right here. Number students, or you could say something like using seat numbers students are sitting in. But I'm just going to write it like this. 1 to 800. Write numbers on identically sized pieces of paper. Place in a hat and mix well. Draw, whoops, can't spell. Draw 80 papers without replacement. Students that correspond to numbers drawn are in the sample. All right, next we're going to do stratified. There are so many ways to do this. We need to identify the strata. So I think I'm going to let it be grade level. We have 200 seats per grade level. You could let them be row numbers. You could let them be column numbers. That's up to you. Totally up to you, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to let strata be grade level. Because it's already organized that way using seat numbers as labeled above. Now the key is I need to make sure I get 80. However I do this, I need to make sure I get 80. I could write a perfect random sampling method, stratified random sampling method, and end up with 40 or 100. That would be bad. So if I'm using grade level, I need to take a little bit from all grade levels. I have 4 grade levels, so naturally I'm going to take 20 random students from each grade level, and I'll have 80. Really, you only need to describe the process for one grade level. Then you can write repeat for other grade levels, giving us 80 numbers. All right, so So let's give it a shot. Write numbers 1 to 200 on identically sized pieces of paper place in a hat and mix well. Doesn't want to write E right there. Draw 20 papers without replacement. Seniors, 12th graders, that correspond to numbers drawn are in the sample. Repeat process for each grade level. I'm struggling with writing. It's end of the day. Giving us 80 students in the sample. Once again, you know, this could have been strata by row, strata by column. If we went by row, we have 40 rows, so I'd want to get 2 from each row, and then vice versa, kind of invert that if I went by column. It's up to y'all. So hope that makes sense. I wanted to do cluster in this video, but this video is too long. I'll do the next video with cluster sampling. I'll see you later.